Well, hello there, and welcome back to this new episode of the Unmasked Podcast. It's Andy. I hope you are doing well today, wherever you are in the world. However, I do have a guest, which I am very delighted to have, and that is Yo Samdy Sam. How are you doing, Sam?
Hello, I'm doing all right, thank you, this morning. Yeah, it's 10 o'clock for me and I think 9 o'clock for you, so bright and early, huh?
Yeah, we were just talking about how early we woke up. I was saying that I got up at 6:30 my time, 7:30 your time, and you were up earlier than me.
I was up at 6:15 my time, but for once I wasn't woken up. Actually, I just woke up because I went to bed really early last night. So I woke up and then actually my son didn't wake up till 7:30, which meant I had an hour and a quarter to myself in the morning, and that was really nice, I have to say.
I was just thinking, what did you do with that alone time? Was it just going on Instagram or?
Well, I mean, the first thing I did was go on Instagram because I saw I had a message from you. And I was like, oh, does he think I've forgotten? Because I hadn't. Actually, I hadn't forgotten, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, I had time to do my little morning routine. I went downstairs, and normally when I go downstairs with like two cats, one child, everybody wants the same thing at the same time. Everyone wants feeding, everyone wants something. So it was like, okay, go downstairs. And then the cats realized I was up, but I managed to get a cup of tea before that. So then I fed the cats and it wasn't like all stressy. So yeah, it's just nice having a bit of a relaxing morning and, setting yourself up for the day makes a big difference.
Yeah, no, totally, totally. I mean, mine when I got up, sorry, it wasn't as luxurious as that. Pretty much, I got up, made breakfast, and just started watching some Netflix stuff. I'm actually gonna try and rewatch House of Cards because it's been a while.
I have never watched that, actually. Just going to say.
Well, I just thought with everything that's gone on, I just thought, oh, this exists. I'm gonna watch it and
That's the one with
see.
Kevin Spacey, right?
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I've never watched it. I'm not really. No, I started watching it actually, and I got bored. I'm just political thrillers are a bit. You know, I prefer things with more like elements of science fiction or fantasy or just something. Or just like if it's just real life people with no fantasy or magic or science or something, I prefer something that's just like feel good, like Gilmore Girls, basically. That's pretty much the only thing that I watch that doesn't have kind of like sci-fi or something in it.
Fair play. But yeah, actually, just as a general question for the viewers and listeners, because I know who you are quite well, because we do YouTube videos about autism and stuff.
Yeah,
But
we've chatted as well. We've chatted.
we have chatted. We have chatted. I am wondering though, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, just for people that don't know you or your YouTube channel?
All right. Well, I am Sam, and I am actually, at the time that everyone is listening to this, I'll probably be 35 years old. So I will be like, I can't really get out of being mid 30s anymore. Can't say, oh, I'm early 30s. No, 35, and I was diagnosed with autism in 2019, early 2019. And after that, I'd been wanting to start a YouTube channel for a while, but I didn't really know what to talk about. And I had a few things that I did, and I was sort of dabbling here and there. But then I decided I was going to make a video about my diagnosis, my late diagnosis, and how it affected me, and blah blah blah. So I made that video, and I literally just posted it to my personal Facebook. And I thought, well, this is better than explaining it a million times over to all my friends and family who probably won't get it. So it was basically just I realized that the people I told didn't really understand what I was saying. And they were like, no, you must be very mildly autistic. Like, it doesn't really affect you. And me having just gone through 6 hours of assessment and feeling like my whole life had been through the ringer, so I made this video, and I think I got about 100 views, and I was pretty chuffed with that, actually. I was like, this is good. People are interested. And, people left some positive comments. Some of my friends sent me messages saying nice things. So I thought, oh, well, this is this is good. And there isn't really that much information about, women with autism. I mean, a lot has changed in the last 2 years, but, at the time, there wasn't that much around about women with autism and just, adult diagnosis and stuff like that. So I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And it just seemed to take off from there. So the first year I was kind of like just focusing on making YouTube videos. And then it was like, I think almost a year ago, like late last year and late 2019, and my channel just really took off on YouTube, and it's been sort of growing quite quickly ever since. I just celebrated 50,000 subscribers, which is an almost unimaginable amount of people. I've been thinking of it in terms of like I could fill which stadium now, with my subscribers. That helps me visualize it a little bit. You don't have any concept of what it's like making content for that amount of people. So in some ways, it doesn't really feel very real because you don't see the people. It's not like I'm standing in the stadium, you just. So in some ways, obviously a lot has changed in that time since I started. But in some ways, actually less has changed because I'm still just making videos and kind of like doing the things that I like doing, putting them on the internet. It still feels like a strange thing to do, making videos about yourself and putting them on the internet. But apparently us humans like that.
Apparently that is a thing that us humans like to do. But I just wanted to say, firstly, I haven't actually congratulated you on reaching 50,000 subscribers. So I just want to do that here and now.
Oh, thank you.
Like, I seen when you passed it, I was like, oh, I should reach 50,000 subscribers. I'll I don't know, I'll message her later or something like that, just to say congrats. With the way my brain is at the minute, it just didn't register that I actually needed to do that. Actually follow through.
Don't worry about it. My brain is exactly the same position. I think we were just talking before we started recording about like this November is just hard. It seems harder for me. It seems harder than when we went to lockdown in March because it was like new and exciting and it was like, ooh, what's going on? And now we've just had so long of this and it's winter and we've watched everything on Netflix and there's not been anything new and it's just like, ugh, and my brain's kind of turned to sludge as well. So I totally get that whole just not remembering, not remembering anything. I can't even talk at the moment. I'm like, what? I can't finish sentences, that sort of thing. My brain is just tired.
Yeah, I'm the same, to be honest. I was just wondering though. This is a question that I ask everyone, just so I don't know, people can get to know you, and I get to know a little bit more about you as well. What are your special interests, would you say?
Well, I'm one of these people, possibly because I've pretty much come to the conclusion that I am undiagnosed ADHD as well. So I think that kind of like shows in the special interests that I've had, because some people like they had the same special interest all through their life and that's their thing. But I'm a little bit more like I like a lot of different things. And, it's not like I stopped liking them, but sometimes the special interest will just come up and it'll be like 2 months and I'll be super obsessed. And then I'm like, there's nothing more to learn about this. I'm bored, kind of thing. So when I was younger, my special interests were very much like TV shows and cultural stuff. I used them as kind of like an escape from what was pretty stressful teenage life. And in terms of like, coping undiagnosed at school, I had a lot of pressure on me academically to like keep going. I was struggling with executive functioning like you wouldn't believe. And so, I was like really into these TV shows. What the first TV shows? Friends was a big one. And that was also, I started building a Friends website, which was back in the days when you had to hand code your HTML, with a little chisel in stone. So that was like that. So all of my special interests tend to like sprout little side interests. So I was really obsessed with Friends, but I was like, I really want to, maybe it's just I've always been like a creator. So I wasn't just someone who would consume it. I'd be like, okay, now I need to make something. So I would make the website and I would write little episode guides and, it's not actually online anymore. You could probably find it on the Wayback Machine, but I don't want to tell you what the address, because it's like it's still my parents' email address, so I don't think they'd appreciate getting a load of emails. So it was like I just wanted to create something, do something with that passion, with what I like. And Friends is probably one of the things that I was super, super obsessed with. And now I look back on it and I rewatch it and I'm like, well, this is a bit cringy and not that funny. The other TV shows I was into, of course, probably anyone who's seen my channel will know that I love Buffy and still love Buffy, and I watch it. I will rewatch it every couple of years. That's a big one. Although I never made a website about it, which was strange. But I guess I realized at the time I did not have time to maintain two websites. But yeah, that was another one. And what are the other TV shows that I liked? I really liked Sabrina. I really liked Dawson's Creek. Like pretty typical teen shows at the time. But
Yeah.
as I've got older and in my adult years, my special interests have become more like either academic or kind of skills based. So psychology was a big special interest, and I went to university to study psychology. And psychology has been something actually that I have continued to be interested in. And I think partly because being autistic and like not really understanding people, I'm like very motivated to try and understand people. But also I think it's fascinating because even psychologists really don't know that much about psychology. There's still, they've not really figured much out in the last 100 years of the field. So I like that there's just so much more to discover.
I was just gonna say, it feels like among other creative people, other advocates and stuff, everyone, not everyone. I think everyone's a bit of an unfair assumption, but loads of people are doing degrees in psychology, and
Mm.
it's like I don't know. See, I've never kind of understood why, but actually thinking about it actually does make sense if you want to understand people and the way people work and like all of that sort of thing. Why not do something that actually explores those things? I guess.
Yeah. And I think from what I've heard, it's pretty common for especially undiagnosed autistic people to go into psychology because I guess well, I don't know, I don't want to make assumptions, but I would imagine if you're neurotypical and you kind of have a good grasp of like what makes people tick and stuff, maybe you just, I don't know, you might not have that same desire to learn more about it. This almost kind of like obsessive, I must find out, well, why do people act this way? All of that kind of stuff. And I think the thing that disappointed me about psychology a little bit as a discipline and why I didn't end up becoming a psychologist was because they weren't asking the right questions and they didn't have answers that satisfied me. And they still don't.
Okay.
Like when it comes to, okay, what is autism? Oh, well, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder, and we did these studies and blah blah blah. We found that autistic people can't do this as well. And it's like, okay, but what is autism? Like, oh well, we've seen there are some brain scans and stuff. Like, okay, but what is it? Like, what does it look like? How does an autistic brain look different from a neurotypical brain? Like, and is it like degrees? Do people with like higher support needs have different brain structures, or is it more like, is that an environmental thing? And like, we just don't know any of this, and it's frustrating because nobody seems to be asking the right questions. Although that's
Hmm.
changing now because I think more autistic people are getting into research. So
Which
yeah, I could go
which
on for a while.
I was just gonna say that's actually a really great thing that people actually are getting into the field, and it is something I think just in general, like autistic people need to be going into these areas and having more of a voice in. I think in all aspects, to be honest. I think it's super important. But one of the things which I think you know has become more and more of a thing over the last few years is autistic people getting into YouTube. I mean, me and you are on YouTube doing our thing, and obviously you talked about how you've grown so rapidly over the last year, which is it as like a more of a, I guess, a fan of your content. It's been amazing to see because like the only other time I've seen growth like that was with Katie from Invisible Eye, and when I was a fan of her before we became friends, and I don't know, it's just incredible to see that.
Thank you.
No, it's okay. It's for me, it's good to see representation. For people that believe in what they believe.
Yeah.
It's obviously a really good thing, but as a person who does make content, and I kind of understand it, but I kind of want a bit more of an understanding, and I'm hoping that people who are listening get a bit of a understanding of what it can be like sometimes being a creator. Do you feel a certain pressure when it comes to having a massive fan base in terms of the topics that we cover? Like, I don't know, do you feel a certain kind of pressure to cover certain topics and things because of the fan base?
Um, yes and no. It's not, in terms of the topics, it's not really like pressure. It's more like I feel a responsibility. And I know that, when I had 500 subscribers, I could pretty much talk about whatever I wanted. I could say, like, how my autism affects my. Okay, I can't think of anything, but like, it could be very much about me, and my experiences, and like, I don't really need to back anything up. But
Mm-hmm.
I guess I have more of a responsibility to provide accurate information and to represent a more broad range of autism based on what I know now, because I've learned a lot about autism since I've been diagnosed. And, even like making that autism in girls video, I made that video when I had less than 1,000 subscribers. I think I had like 700 subscribers when I made that video, and like it did well when I first put it out, but now it has, well, actually I don't know how many it has. It's been taking off again. It's been up and down, but like last time I checked, it was definitely over. Let me just look it up because now I'm interested. How many views does it have? So
Hmm. Yeah.
689,000 views. um
I was gonna guess a round number of 700,000, to be
Yeah,
honest.
well, that's pretty much it. And like, that's something that I made when I had 700 subscribers. And so, but the thing is, that's the content. Like, that's brought a quarter of my subscribers. That video has brought a quarter of my subscribers to me.
Oh my god.
The problem is, then you have old content that you made when had different knowledge. And I'm like, okay, nowadays I'm actually going to do a video, like a follow-up video, to try and not necessarily correct myself, but maybe, clarify things a bit, because it's like, I think I made some kind of disclaimer in the video being like, oh, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that all autistic girls are like this, or all these traits are just for girls or whatever. But like, now that I know so much more about the LGBT representation within the autistic community, for example, and like gender roles and non-binary representation, so it's a bit like, I feel like I need to go back and clarify that,
Hmm.
you know, that wasn't the whole story. So that's kind of like, I guess that's pressure I put on myself. What I think maybe people don't realize is that when you have 50,000 subscribers, or actually it started happening from way less, like 10, 20,000 subscribers, people kind of still email you assuming that you have all the time in the world to write them back. And I know that obviously everybody means well, but the sheer volume of like comments, messages on Instagram, Facebook messages,
Hmm.
friend requests from random people, emails, even when you say this email's for business inquiries, people still use it, of course.
Yeah.
Like, the sheer amount of correspondence. And it's like, I now have an assistant who helps me with research. She doesn't answer emails for me. So like, I do have someone helping me a little bit part-time now, which has been absolutely crucial. But like, I can't I can't respond to all of this. And because like this time last year, I was responding to every single comment, and I was trying to write back to everyone who wrote me an email, and like I was really involved and engaged. And now I'm like, okay, I have to detach from this because it's using up all my energy trying to think of replies to all these comments and trying to, if somebody sends you an email, and like, I guess it's the nature of when you are making content for the autistic community, and people feel like they know you because they have, it's called a parasocial relationship, where people watch your videos and relate to you, and then the more videos they watch, the more they feel like they know you and they're your friend, and you don't know them at all. So
Oh yeah.
it's like, I think, did you talk to Connor Ward about this, about like one-sided kind of
One-sided relationship where you put yourself out there and then people kind of feel like they know you even though you don't know them. Yeah, it was.
Exactly,
Yeah.
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 So you end up getting these sometimes extremely long emails, messages, whatever, where people tell you extremely intimate information about their lives.
Mm.
And if somebody sends you like that much in an email, you can't just reply saying like, "Oh, thank you so much for your email." So that's not the work that I want to be doing. That's not the work that, that's the thing is. I know people watch my videos and they say, "Oh, I really like you," and stuff like that. But like, I don't like people that much. Like, I don't like talking to people, and I have the people that I like. And it's not to say that if I met these people who send me emails, like on a one-on-one basis, if I like met them on the street and I would just shun them or whatever, that's not the case. But like, it's just the sheer volume that is really overwhelming. And like, so I've just had to kind of, recently I've been kind of like adjusting my boundaries and my expectations about what I do. And so replying to people individually, that's not something that I want to do. I can't solve individual people's problems. What I want to do is create content that, like, if I get a lot of emails saying, I don't know how to get a diagnosis, then I make a video about how you get a diagnosis. You know, that's how I want to help people, because like individual people kind of scare me.
I think that's a perfectly fair thing to say. I think people might misinterpret, but like I'm not really a people-y kind of person either. Really, I think when people watch videos of a person, you can just kind of assume what that person's going to be like in real life. Really, in terms of just managing stuff, you have a much bit you have a much bigger workload than I do, and people adore you, whereas people kind of put up with
I
me.
don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know about adore. I think people probably adore you too. Maybe they just don't send you the emails yet, because I think, how many subscribers are you on now? Like 7,500, something like that.
Uh, I
You're going
want
up to 10, aren't you?
I'm gonna have to have a look.
Should I look you up on Social Blade?
I'm there. 7.8.
Ooh, the Big Ten's coming up. That's exciting.
I know. Uh, it'll be nice. It'll be nice to reach it, I think. And but yeah, no, like it. I guess even for me at this moment in time, I do feel that pressure as well.
Yeah.
Not to the same extent, but it's kind of trying to meet expectation, but also meeting your own satisfaction, I guess. So, trying to make stuff which is going to help people, but at the same time, it's stuff that is going to be fulfilling for you, really. But I guess like the way you're doing it now, the way you're going to be moving forward, it's kind of like how you started off your YouTube journey in the first place, where you made the video about your diagnosis, explaining it for people to understand it. It is kind of the same sort of thing, which I think is quite interesting.
Yeah, so I guess instead of info dumping to lots of people, you make one video and info dump into that. It's quite a good kind of focus for that, actually, which is why I think that a lot of creators on YouTube are autistic. Like, there's the kind of stereotype that introverted people do well on YouTube, and I think autistic people can do as well, depending if they kind of like channel their passion in of the topic into their videos in that way. Because then, I mean, the problem is, it does stopped me info dumping about autism outside of my channel, because I'm kind of like bored about talking about it almost by that point. But then when I talk to other people about that, then I start info dumping about YouTube to them. Because like YouTube is also kind of like one of my special interests, like the analytics and SEO and how the whole ecosystem works. And I find it very interesting. But I have got nowhere to info dump. So whenever anyone asks about my YouTube channel, I'm like, did you know, by the way? So yeah, it's a little bit, but at the moment, I just, we're both in lockdown, aren't we? Well, I'm on
Yeah.
semi-lockdown, you're on lockdown. So it's a bit different, because I think that communication digitally through the internet is very different from communication in real life. And like we're saying, if I, like I was saying before, if I had like meetups and everyone was asking me questions there, I'd probably be like, really happy to talk to people for a while anyway. But I think the digital thing is kind of like a barrier, because you don't really get a sense of the person when they're talking. And I'm one of those people that I pick up vibes about people and I don't really know why, but then I have this vibe and it usually turns out to be right.
Okay.
And you can't really like get that online. So, when people send you messages, you just have absolutely no idea if they're gonna, if like you reply to them and then they say, well, why didn't you answer this question or something like that, so it's just like, it's kind of a risk every time you engage with someone online. You don't really know how they're going to react, because you don't have any feedback about what their mood is like or what anything looks like. So for me, it makes it a bit anxiety inducing talking to strangers on the internet sometimes. Which I don't know, because I don't know whether that's necessarily the case for all autistics. It's probably different. I'm just someone that, it's not necessarily facial expressions, all because I don't always look at people's faces, but it's just like the information that you get from things like tone of voice and body language, and just like, I don't know whether this is a bit woo woo, but I pick up people's vibes, and I usually get a sense of someone quite quickly.
It's kind of impossible to do it on online, quite to be perfectly honest, because you don't know you don't know what, if there's an ulterior motivation either, really.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
And
but
sometimes I think I can get it wrong. Just from the way that something is constructed, I'll take something completely the wrong way. And so I'll be on the defensive, or I'll get a bit annoyed when maybe it wasn't their intention. And so I found that because that happened like so much and I was getting really worked up and then people were misunderstanding me, it was just leading to a lot of like misunderstandings, which really stresses me out. And I think people assume, because I'm like quite hyperverbal and stuff. I think people assume that miscommunication happens with me just as much as it does to any autistic person. And so I feel more pressure sometimes to be like better at dealing with people. And
mm,
my way is kind of like to retreat. That's maybe not a healthy coping mechanism, but it's working for, it's also not really something where you got a guidebook for how to deal with being like internet famous, is there,
no, when actually to kind of lift the lid on the, I was going to say tea cozy, but that makes absolutely no sense
The lid
whatsoever.
on the tea cozy, on the
Yeah.
teapot.
Oh yes, to kind of lift. That's it. Lift the veil. There we go. We were kind of talking about this in our initial call, and it was. It's nice. It's nice for me, and I think it's nice for you. When someone actually gets it, when someone actually understands, what what kind of goes on behind the scenes. So it is a nice thing. But to kind of round off this section, because I really want to get onto the part which I think when I'm gonna do an intro, actually explain what the part is, because I forgot to do it at the beginning.
Mhm.
So but to kind of round off this section, I wanted to ask you about some of your favorite autism creators. because I asked Stephanie, and we did kind of fangirl on you. So I kind of
I
wanted to
know
give
it was
you.
really embarrassing because I was in the bath. I was just listening. I thought I'll catch up on it. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, they're talking about me and I'm naked. This is so embarrassing. It was just a bit weird.
Oh,
Now I'm
okay.
like, oh no, he's going to ask me the same question. Oh no.
Okay, oh, right. I got that message. I got the message of you saying, "Oh, I'm embarrassed." I was like, "Oh, okay. It must. I don't know. I don't know. I thought it was sort of self-deprecation or something."
It was a
But
bit.
I
But I also
didn't
didn't
know.
want to send you a message saying I was naked, did I? Because that could be taken the wrong way by
Yes,
some.
yeah. But now I actually understand the full context. This
Yeah.
is why. This is why talking to human beings, guys, is actually can actually be very insightful.
Yes, talking is actually more helpful than we think, even if it's like just like a phone call kind of thing. Well, I guess this is different though, but I think the thing about phone calls is that you don't have like nice headphones on, and it's not like a chill conversation. It's always like there's something stressful going on because somebody's called you, But
And
it is nice to chat to people kind of like real time, not just online. But this is another thing, like I do things, and sometimes I kind of like don't always see all of the things that are kind of autistic. So I'll send people messages, and without context, they'll have no idea what I'm talking about because I forget that they don't know what I'm talking about, you know? So
yeah.
people probably think I'm a bit strange, like people who know me in real life and people
Um,
who know me on the internet.
I was gonna say, I think that's a general feeling that a lot of us feel, which is obviously a great thing. I think it's obviously good to feel like you can relate to others, but favorite autism creators, who who
Um,
you gonna mention?
I don't know who I'm going to mention because, like, the thing is, I'm subscribed to kind of like all the autism creators that I can think of,
Hmm.
This is going to sound like I'm trying to avoid the question, which I am. But like, I don't have a favorite. It's more like I like all the creators that I watch, and then I don't watch all of their videos because I really don't have time. And this isn't
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm not. It's beneath me. I don't have time to sit and watch YouTube, which is, well, a bit sad sometimes. But it's more like I'll watch one video that I'm particularly interested in and be like, oh, that's a good video, kind of thing. And usually when it's like you or Purple Ella or someone, I like Purple Ella. I'll mention her because we're mates. I feel.
Yeah, I, I was
Um,
I was gonna say I think Ella's great.
yeah, and I like dropping in on her live streams and trolling her in the comments, just because I think it's funny. And I normally do it when I'm having the night off, and I'm sitting there laughing. And then of course she puts my comment on the screen, and I get embarrassed. So
Oh well, to she is great at what she does, but someone who you mentioned actually in our initial call actually went onto their channel, and they're really great. I'm really glad you gave me the suggestion of this person
who was that?
actually.
Can't remember.
Uh, Hunter Hansen.
Oh yeah, yeah, he's very cool.
Yeah, I was like you kind of you kind of gave him your endorsement. So I was like, okay, right, I'll check this person now. I actually really love what he does. He's so chill.
I know he's got 3 kids and he's that chill. It's inspiration, isn't it?
It is. It's like he's like the kind of the father figure that I would love to be. Just that chill dad with the oh, I mean, he had really wavy hair and stuff. I mean, that's just cool in itself.
I mean, I'm still upset that he cut his hair, but I guess he's allowed to do that if he wants. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to do that, that's totally fine. But
But like,
no,
I strongly recommend he doesn't. I mean, that's just someone who has an incredible following on YouTube, highly recommending something. I don't know. People are free to. People are free to take it or leave it, but that was me being passive aggressive for those who don't understand tone in a joking way. I do that kind of humor a lot, and people don't always get it, and they think I'm just being mean.
I feel like I get you, which is good.
Good.
Good. But yeah, no. Guys, if you want to check out Hunter Hansen, you definitely should. Because I don't know, he's just really chill. He explains things very well
Yeah.
in a very calm way, and his kids are delightful, I have to say. They're
Yeah, and
really
we
great.
all need more autistic parenting content, I think, because it's just like there is so like I guess I'm just trying to think what other autistic like obviously Ella's got does she have 2 kids or 3 kids? I think she's got 3 kids. Hunter Hansen's doing that. The Aspie World's obviously he's got a kid, but he doesn't really do parenting content, does he?
No,
Not
and
that I've seen.
I think Ella has two. I think.
Yeah, maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I'm mixing her up with another creator, a non-autistic creator. I'm not sure.
Oh.
But yeah, it's like the thing is, it's just really hard to make not autism parenting. Like it's hard to make parenting content about being autistic without seeming like you're just whining. You know, because it's like you can't really make videos that are like 10 things I love about being an autistic parent because you just be like, okay, yeah, name one. It's like, well, I mean, it's not like I don't love being a parent, but it's like, well, okay, what's great about being an autistic parent? It's like it's a bit strange. Like if you said, okay, make a video, 10 things you love about being autistic, sure, no problem. Like 10 things you love about being a parent, I could probably make that video. But like what does being an autistic parent it's a bit of a strange concept, and there's not much that's been done on it, and there's certainly not much like research and literature, so it's a bit like, you know, where do you go forward, and how do you create content that helps people, that helps other autistic parents, and you know, like yourself, I
Hmm.
mean, you said that you were considering it, is that right? I don't want to out you, oh my gosh, but you said you would might be thinking about having kids at some point.
Yeah, that's true. It's you're definitely not out with me. Don't worry.
Okay,
I've said it before.
yeah,
Yeah, but that's kind of why I wanted to do something like this eventually. I didn't realize it was going to be with you, but you know, it's just a really great conversation to have because there are very few examples of autistics parenting. You know, just autistic kids or even neurotypical kids. You know, seeing kind of
yeah.
how that works. You know, and it's to, I can understand that it is possibly difficult to make content around that because it's yeah. But I don't know what do you think is difficult about it or could be
Well,
difficult about
for
it.
me, I mean, I don't put pictures of my child on the internet, even on my private profiles. So any content that I made would be like, no question, that like my child would not be in it. So, you know, all the cute stuff. Like Hunter Hansen, he's got a really cute channel because his kids are really cute. Like, so I wouldn't really be able to make content like that. And then I don't know. I think it's difficult because a lot of it is just talking about struggles and maybe maybe like strategies that you've used. The thing that's also difficult for me is that my child is coming up to 3.5, and he's not been diagnosed with anything. He's almost certainly neurodivergent in some way. We don't really know what flavor yet. I would imagine probably both autistic and ADHD. But you know, he's not been diagnosed, and
Hmm.
we don't have a particular reason to get him diagnosed right now because he doesn't need extra support. So it's sort of like, okay, I make a video about parenting, but surely that's only helpful if, you know, like parenting an autistic person parenting an autistic kid, or what it's like parenting a neurotypical kid, and I can't really make that kind of content.
Yeah.
So the only way I can really talk about parenting is kind of like how I manage myself. like how I manage my triggers, and how I take care of myself, and like what it's like. So I mean, it's definitely something that I wanted to talk about, and I probably will talk about it in the future, because we do want to have another kid in the future. So it's probably something that's going to be coming up, but it's just a bit difficult when you don't want to show your kid's face on camera. I don't know. And I'm not really. I watched your I listened to half of your podcast in the bath, and then I watched the second half where you and Stephanie were talking about fathering autism on
Oh yeah.
YouTube, because,
Oh yeah.
I guess that's an ADHD concentration thing. I couldn't sit there for an hour and a half just listening to a podcast. Um,
That that's
so,
that's fair enough.
but it was nice because you'd split it up quite nicely. So I appreciated that, actually. Um, but I think with fathering autism, not that I'm about to give my opinion on fathering autism. But the main issue I have with his content is that the family vlogger style is something that I really think is not good for kids. I don't really agree with family vlogging like that. I think it's dodgy. I think it's really dodgy to be putting so much of your child's life on the internet, because even a teenager, like even a neurotypical teenager, I don't really think that teenagers have much concept. Maybe nowadays they do, but certainly when I was a teenager, you didn't have a concept that anything you put on the internet was on the internet forever and could
Yeah.
potentially be found forever. And I just think that's I think that probably informs a lot of my opinion on fathering autism, because I'm not keen on the family vlog thing in the first place.
That's fair enough. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's obviously not. It's not for everyone. I mean, um, well, by the time this is out, people would have already seen that I made that section of the podcast its own video, and
Oh, have you got
uh,
comments on that? I didn't see any comments.
uh, it didn't necessarily. I don't think it divided people. I think I think we were quite. I think we both were quite respectful with that fact.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
because but I kind of knew either way. There were going to be people who will not like what we were going to say, regardless. It was going. It was going to happen. It was going to happen, really. But actually, I guess in terms of autistic parenting and neurotypical kind of parenting. Not using fathering autism as an example, because
Mhm.
to just in general, what are the differences? I know you obviously said they, in terms of being an autistic person, it can be a bit more of a can. I, that sounded really patronizing, didn't it? A bit more of a struggle. But do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, well, life is more of a struggle in general, and parenting is like, I don't want to say heavy burden, but it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. It uproots your life. It turns your life on its head in some ways. In other ways, it might not really change it that much, especially if you're kind of a homebody to begin with. But it's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot to bear, and I think that if you don't have support in place, it can be a time that really drags you down, is a bit of a negative way of saying this, but wears you down. And I think for me especially, because remember, I didn't get my diagnosis officially until my son was 18 months old. Um,
ah, right.
so and I was kind of like, I think it was around when he was like 4 to 6 months old is when I had my light bulb moment. I was like, okay, I'm going to research this kind of thing.
Hmm.
So, I was kind of like, I went through all of pregnancy thinking I was going insane because of it wasn't a really great pregnancy. Like there was nothing wrong with me, but I just felt terrible the entire pregnancy. And and I thought I was going mad because my sensory sensitivities were extremely heightened.
Hmm.
And people were acting like, why are you complaining? Like you're not that everyone, people get pregnant every day. You're not special, kind of thing. I also had some really awful friends at the time, So that didn't help, but they're out of my life now. But, you know, so it was like from the minute I got pregnant and then like having a small child and navigating all of that, not knowing you're autistic, that really messes with your head, because
Mm.
there were times where I actually just thought I thought I was just disintegrating from the inside. And of course now I know, you know, like, oh, I've got a good selection of headphones and earplugs that I can use when the baby's been crying for 4 hours because it's got colic, you know, like,
Yeah.
so now I know, okay, this information that I'm extremely sensitive to sound is very useful information because I can prepare myself for it now. So I think having knowledge about your own triggers and your own how you manage your own autistic difficulties will set you up to cope better when it comes time to be a parent.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I
you're probably
mean,
in a better space because you've obviously spent a lot of time thinking about it and making videos about ways that you cope, and you know you've got ways to manage things. So you just know that when it comes down to it, that you need to kind of like double down on all those strategies. Like if you've got problems with executive functioning, you need to make sure that you're organized.
yeah,
You know, if you've got issues with sensitive hearing, you need to make sure that you've got uh, noise cancelling headphones that you're very happy with, or you make sure that you schedule in enough time to go and like just be by yourself, just lock yourself in a cupboard for like 30 minutes. You know, we've all been there.
I mean, I can't remember the last time I put myself in a cupboard, to be honest.
Well, wait till you become a parent.
oh, oh,
Actually, having said that, I have not put myself in a cupboard since I became a parent, but I have locked myself in the toilet a few times, which I think is pretty common among parents.
I was going to say, when I was at a former workplace, I would get quite stressed out with work. So sometimes I would lock myself in the loos for like 5, 10 minutes.
I do that at
So
school as well, actually. I've been thinking about that recently. Like, I had my favorite toilets at school, which don't we all? Um, but yeah, I would just, if I was having an overwhelming day, I would like not just 10 minutes, like I'd hide in there for like 20 minutes, half an hour kind of thing.
hmm.
Which, when you look back at it, you think, really, did it really take me like 33 years to get diagnosed?
uh, but I guess in terms of like the difference, I guess one of the key things that is kind of apparent is kind of like the support for parents. Because I don't know when it comes to like neurotypical parents, and I'm not making an assumption. It's just kind of what I'm thinking, at this moment in time. It's like if there's neurotypical parents with an autistic kid, there tends to be a lot more, "Oh, we'll help you through this,"
Hmm.
that sort of thing. But I don't know if that's kind of the same, or there is a difference in that aspect in terms of support, or whether that support for autistic parents is actually available. To be honest.
Well, obviously, that depends on the country you're in. I mean, there is very little support for autistic adults in the UK, full stop. Where I am, I do get support. It's not related necessarily to my status as a parent, although that has been part of it for some of the support I get.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't think I know of any resources that are specifically to help autistic parents. And actually, that would be such a good thing, wouldn't it? To be had to have like an online resource or like create some kind of a guidebook for autistic parents, wouldn't it? Like
Yeah.
it would
I
be
mean,
kind of good, but I don't even think that I'm the right because I don't think I'm the right person to do that necessarily because at the end of the day, I've only been a parent for 3.5 years and I've only parented one child. So maybe it would be the kind of thing that would need to get a whole bunch of people together to, you know, crowdsource the information in some way.
yeah, like I don't know. It could be because I know some people have like a like. I hate the use. use the term survival guide, but I guess when it comes to parenting of any sort, you kind of want to hear from the people who have the experience.
Yeah.
So if I'm going into a new situation, I like to know what I'm getting myself into. And
Yeah.
I've obviously asked the questions like, oh, what do you do when this happens or that happens? But it's usually from the view of neurotypical people, which is not a bad thing at all. I'm not saying that. But it's a different experience, I think, when
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a different experience,
I
really.
mean, the main problem with using resources made with neurotypical parents in mind is that a lot of these strategies just don't work if your kids are neurodivergent. Like, for example, sleep. Okay, sleep is a big issue for autistic kids and autistic adults, right?
Hmm.
But obviously a lot of neurotypical parents and kids like have problems getting a sleep routine and getting their kids to sleep. So the problem is kind of like universal in some ways, but the solution is definitely not. And like, there's a big divide within parenting communities, which I'm sure when you get to the point, you'll be delighted to know that every community is as divided as the autistic community can be. But like, there are some parents who swear by the cried out method, which is basically like, I mean, at its cruelest, you just leave your kid to cry until it goes to sleep. And if you're doing the kind of nurturing cry it out method, you let them cry for 5 minutes and then you go back in and pat them on the head or whatever. And then you let them cry for 7 minutes and you go back in and you
Hmm.
progressively drag it out until eventually the child wears itself out. And there are a huge amount of different strategies. This is just one example of something, of
Yeah.
getting your child to sleep. And I think I probably tried them all. My child he just would not go to sleep between the ages of, I don't know, 14 months and 18 months. It would take 90 minutes to get him to sleep. And, we tried everything. And because I was so focused, because at the time, obviously, I hadn't been diagnosed, and it kind of like, even though my husband has ADHD, it never even occurred to me that I'd have like a neurodivergent child, because that wasn't really on my radar at the time.
Yeah.
So, I had these months where like I was just completely sleep deprived. And eventually the solution that we ended up doing was just sitting with him for up to an hour and a half for him to fall asleep every night. And it still kind of feels like that was not weakness, but that's like giving in somehow, right? You have this
Hmm.
feeling like that's not what you're supposed to be doing. But at the end of the day, I think I tried cry it out method a couple of times. And, most people, they say, oh, they went to sleep within 10 minutes. It's a miracle. My child was crying for 40 minutes and that happened once. And I thought, this is not right. This is not how I want to parent. And I can't leave him like this. And he just wasn't calming down,
Hmm.
wasn't getting himself tired in the same way. And he still doesn't get tired in the same way that other kids do. Like, the more tired he gets, the more active he gets. And then but he's getting a lot better. Like, this was just, a few months where the problem was really bad. But when
Yeah.
you're looking for solutions within common wisdom or neurotypical parenting groups, the advice they give you is completely irrelevant sometimes and just will not work. And I think that is possibly the best advice that I could give anyone, especially if they have neurodivergent kids, is just like, don't feel guilty or feel like you've failed if the advice doesn't work, because it's about finding what does work, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
And my son is no worse for, like, I feel like a bit of a mug sometimes having sat there for however long. The thing is, looking back at it, I know exactly why he wasn't sleeping at night, which is really cruel. I think of my poor self back then, and I think I just wish I could tell her, because he was sleeping too late. His second nap was too long, and I would let him sleep too much in the day. But the problem was I was desperately trying to catch up on the sleep that I wasn't getting at night. So I was appreciating those daytime naps, and then I was just trying to put him to bed too early, and it was a kind of like a really vicious cycle. But I
Hmm.
couldn't see that. Obviously now I know. I'll I'll be on the watch next time. But it's things like that. You're desperately trying to figure out a solution. And all of these experts have their opinions, and there are so many books, and you can spend so much money on sleep aids and white noise machines and all these kind of things. And sometimes some people's kids, they're just like, I just need to give them melatonin even when they're 15 months old. And I wouldn't say that mainstream you're supposed to give melatonin under the age of 3. We did actually try melatonin, and that was one of the things that did work, but I stopped after a while because he didn't seem to need it anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
the problem is that treating a neurodivergent child, which I'm going to assume he is, but undiagnosed, but treating them as if they should just be able to sleep like a neurotypical child is kind of doing a disservice to everyone. So
Mm.
you really have to embrace other autistic parents, find those support groups. I do have a group that I'm a part of, which I won't say because otherwise people might join it and find me. I don't know. But I have a variety of like mums support groups for autistic mothers, and that's been really helpful because people have got a variety of opinions and approaches, and you can usually find someone who's aligned with your kind of values.
Mm.
And like when I say values, I mean like, I don't want to leave my child crying for 40 minutes to teach him that he needs to go to sleep because in my opinion, if a child is crying that much, it's because he wants to be comforted. He needs the comfort.
Mm.
You know? So yeah, it's really tricky. And for me, it's been like problem solving, And maybe the reason that my child doesn't seem to have so many obvious traits, although I didn't either at his age, is because I've spent so much energy desperately problem solving the issues he had. If he had a neurotypical parent who tried neurotypical things and he didn't get to sleep, if he didn't get as much sleep as he did, I think his traits would be much worse. So in
Mm.
that respect, I think autistic parents can be very good parents for autistic kids. Well, obviously, but because we can really focus in if your hyper focus becomes not your child but just parenting in general, and you focus on, okay, this is the problem, let's find a solution to this, let's go research all these different techniques, let's research this, let's think about this and implement, and kind of like a scientific experiment. And I don't think that's an approach that neurotypical parents would necessarily take to a problem.
I suppose not. I think they would. I think they would go out and seek advice, but I don't think they would obviously just ask like in a circle kind of thing, and not actually look outside that.
Yeah.
Quite possibly. I think for me, when it comes to parenting, I think that whole thing of leaving a kid to cry, I couldn't do it personally, because, well, one, I would just want the noise to stop because
Yeah.
I'm like noise sensitive to
Yeah.
stuff. And something that I do want to ask though is, how does your autism help you be a parent? Because yes, I can obviously imagine that parenting is obviously hard. You've obviously talked about that, but I think autism in general can, there are good points and bad points, just like with anything else in life, really.
Yeah.
But I did wonder, how does I think actually you did mention the hyperfocus, but I don't know whether that's a part of your like your
I
kind of
think
like
focus.
ADHD.
Well, maybe. I think the hyperfocus is probably a part of the way that I find out information and find solutions to problems. So I'm trying to think of another example that doesn't involve like sleep or whatever. Um, let's just talk
Um,
about like, well, I don't know. Maybe you can think of something that you want to know about, and then I'll try and.
I guess just general. I don't know, just general behavior. I guess, like, how do you like just I don't know, how do you just deal with a kid? I guess because I'm very because I'm not the most. I would say, I don't know. I've never really until like the last few years before I'd have kids in the first place. So I don't typically know what goes on in like when it comes to like, young kids, especially because I never grew up with younger kids. I was the youngest kid in my family. My sister went off to university. I don't know what kind of issues there are. I mean, obviously, I know from like an autism point of view that sleep is like the main kind of thing that gets brought up
Yeah.
in general. Like, it's a massive topic in itself, to be honest. Um, I don't
I
know.
mean, okay, so I've got a 3-year-old, and sort of like 2 3-year-olds, they've got a reputation for being, well, illogical little bastards sometimes. Um, that's maybe the nicest way I can put it. And obviously, this depends because I don't want to be doling out parenting advice because, like, this is the advice on how I deal with my child who is not necessarily like other children, even like other autistic or ADHD kids, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I've always been like somebody that doesn't dumb things down. So I've explained to my son from the start of this year why we can't go outside. It's because of the virus, and that also means that when you get back from preschool, you've got to wash your hands, and that's non-negotiable. And that's, I use these words. He's extremely almost hyperverbal, hyperlexic like me. But I use these words, and I don't try and scare him. I'm very honest about things happening in the world.
Hmm.
I don't sugarcoat things. I have no intention of making up some kind of a Santa myth, because it would be very strange given the cultural influences of our family, and also the fact that we live in the Netherlands where Santa is Sinterklaas and it's a whole different thing. So and some people think that you are being cruel by not doing that, by saying that it's not like I'm going to say no, there's no such thing as Santa, and by the way, he's dead or whatever. Like, you don't have to do it in a cruel way. It's just, you don't bring up, you can talk about Santa as this sort of thing that happens in movies and kids TV shows and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
the whole mythology of it, that's maybe a bit too much, but like, I just don't see why you would do it, because my kid is looking forward to Christmas like any other kid, you know? Like, and he loves putting up decorations and singing Christmas songs, and he loves all of that. And so, but I think that's probably kind of an autistic approach, because it would never occur to me to lie to my child to make things better. Like, I didn't lie to him about what was happening because of the virus. I was just like, this is the situation, and that's why we can't go anywhere. And yeah, it really sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess that's actually quite an interesting way of doing it. To be honest, for me, I probably would do the same thing because I don't know, like I can get into the whole thing of, oh, well, I don't know because I haven't experienced it, but I probably would do the same sort of thing, but then because I have my Nicola who is neurotypical, I she would obviously play into, oh, Santa Claus is real. He lives in I don't know, Lapland or wherever, and I'm just like, but you're just saying something that isn't kind of true, really.
Well,
But
she probably needs to be prepared then for the kid, if the kid is autistic, to turn around and go, Santa, no. Because that's what me and my brother did, apparently. Apparently, my mum tried at some point to talk about Santa, and we just laughed in her face. So, it can go both ways. She might be disappointed that it doesn't quite happen like she would expect.
yeah, but I think to be fair, she is with me, and
Yeah.
yeah, um, and I think that's kind of the good thing about just our relationship in general, because we do have those different experiences, and I think when it comes to um, having a child, I think it would be a good thing. I think I'll be like you in a way where I'd want to analyze the situation before diving into it, and that sort of thing. Whereas Nicola is kind of the opposite. She'll just go in kind of head first. It's like yesterday, completely unrelated to parenting, but it kind of sums up my point really. We got a few packages delivered to the house yesterday, and she was opening up these packages with her bare hands, and there was me standing there in the kitchen just being like, why don't you get scissors out of the drawer? It'll make it easier for yourself. so so yeah, I think we'll end up having two different approaches, but I
Yeah.
think for me, kind of treating them like little adults probably I'll probably not try not to do it. I'll try my best not to, but it will just be that thing that I do because it's just who I am as a person. And I think
But you also can end up, when you take that approach, you can end up with a kid who is very much more independent and capable than if you kind of like baby them too long. I don't know. I'm never one of these people that's really like, oh, the babies, and oh, they grow up so fast. Because first of all, my experience of my perception of time during parenting has not been they grow up so fast. Like the last 3 years has lasted 3 decades in my like, I don't know why. It's not like I haven't enjoyed it or it's been awful. It's just like I felt like it's been such a long time. And
yeah,
so I don't relate to the whole they grow up so fast thing. I just don't, because it doesn't, that's not how time has passed for me. But I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, it's so sad. They're getting so big and they're not going to be a baby anymore. I'm like the opposite. I'm delighted every time my child does something, like when he was able to dress himself, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So I've been more like, I think a lot of parents are very into the baby and nostalgia kind of thing, and I'm more
mm,
like not quite shoving him out the door, but it's like, he can do a lot of things, and I see his neurotypical peers. I don't know, I wouldn't say that I'm a pushy parent. I'm not pushing him to do things. I'm just allowing him and giving him that room to be capable where he's able to be, you know
yeah,
giving him the option. Like, he drinks, I don't know whether this is common, he drinks with, like, china mugs. Well, not fine china, but like ceramic mugs.
mm,
um and we went somewhere at some point, and they were saying, oh, is he all right, does he need a sippy cup kind of thing? I'm like, no, he's been taught to drink out of a ceramic mug, because okay, you don't spend a fortune on them, but if they're given that opportunity, I think kids, unless there's, like, dyspraxia or a coordination issue kind of thing, that's a separate kind of thing. But of course,
mm-hmm.
this is dependent on the child, isn't it? And my kid's not super coordinated, he's a bit clumsy, so don't get me wrong there, but I've given him that opportunity since he was quite young to, you know this is just one example, drink with a ceramic mug, and now he does it. And we haven't actually had any broken mugs or glasses, which is one thing. But I guess that is my kind of approach and philosophy. It's very much like you are preparing them to be adults.
Mm.
So you got to treat them like they can do it.
That's Do you know what? That's actually quite an interesting way of looking at it. Actually, it's like I guess that is kind of the kind of the I don't want to say goal, but it's the only word I can think of at this moment in time. Kind of the goal of a parent is to prepare them for life, really.
Yeah.
Leaving the nest and leaving the nest and fending for themselves. It's like a barbaric kind of way of looking at it, but that is
Yeah.
kind of what that's kind of is what it's like, really.
But it's also about, like, what you want your life to be as a parent, because, like, the first 3 years probably the hardest, I would say. But then you've still got a kid in the house for the next 15 years. Sorry, I'm just fiddling around with things on my desk. I
No
don't know
worries.
if I picked it up on the microphone. You've got to live with them for the next 15 years. So you need to raise your kids into somebody that you can tolerate living with, because that's also, like, it's not just about, before I had my child, it was always like, oh, we're gonna have a baby. We're gonna have a baby. But then all of a sudden you have, like, this little person, and you better hope that you've raised them not to be someone that you don't like living with. Because they're there. They're there now.
Yeah.
And I think I did all right with my kid. Like, most people love my kid, maybe a little bit more than they like me, actually. But he drives me crazy sometimes. And I think that is probably a lot of that is probably ADHD traits, because there is hyperactivity.
Hmm.
Um, but also I see things, and the way that he's considerate of other people, which is very important to me, not to be really like selfish and rude and doing things that you want to do, no matter how it affects other people. So I've been very firm with my sensory boundaries. Like, he wants the light on, but if the light is hurting my eyes, I say we have to have it off, because this is your want, but this is my need. Actually,
Hmm.
I never actually said it to him like that, but that's a good way of putting it, isn't it?
That is,
You
that's it
want the light
actually. Yeah.
on, but I need the light off. You
Hmm.
see? And that has been like from, well, maybe not from absolute baby, because little babies don't really do anything. You just put them in a papoose and, go about your day mostly. But um that's a
Oh,
very idealized notion. But like explaining to him from, like, 1.5 to 2, that kind of age, when they can understand a lot of what you say.
hmm.
um he knows that I'm sensitive to noise. So he knows that there is one particular video that he loves to watch on YouTube, which I don't even know what it's called. It's just a random video. It has the most aggravating noises. And he knows that if he wants that on, he's like, can we watch this one? But very, very quietly, He's a funny little chap, actually. Just as funny as his mum. But like, because I've been really clear on my boundaries, and I don't think that's a bad thing to communicate your needs to your child. Like, it's not being selfish, it's telling them, because I say there comes to a point where I say to him, if you carry on like this, mummy's going to have a meltdown. You know,
Hmm.
and if you don't let mummy go upstairs and have a bit of quiet, I'm going to lose it. And that is a lot better to tell him this than to suddenly snap and scream at everyone, Giving, so
Yeah.
it's almost like you narrate how you're feeling. Like, this light is a bit bright. Can we please turn it off? Can you keep this noise down? Mummy's starting to get agitated, like, and that seems like it's making it all about you, but actually it's like, it's helping them make sense of what's going on within you, so that if you do, even if you still end up having a meltdown because they don't listen to you, or because of other factors unrelated to them, at least they're aware of what's just happened. And you didn't just come out of nowhere screaming and hitting the walls, because that could be scary.
Yeah, true. But also, I think as well, if you have that kind of approach, and I'm just commenting as an outsider, really. But if you actually do have like an open kind of, well, open and honest kind of communication with your kid, surely that makes them a better person, makes them more considerate, just going into life in general, of like
I hope
how.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I would, uh, like things to go. Whether it turns out that way, that's obviously a different matter, different matter entirely.
Mhm.
But that's kind of, I like that philosophy actually. I think it's actually quite a good thing actually, uh, to do. But I guess something I guess I can kind of ask is, what do you enjoy about parenting? I was going to ask about it earlier, but then you were kind of in the flow, so I thought, do you know what? You're actually talking really good stuff. So,
um what do I enjoy about parenting? It's it's very rewarding watching something that you've created. I mean, like, especially as a woman, when it's literally grows within you, that's like, it's pretty nice to be like, yeah, I made that. Um,
yeah,
Especially when they come out nicely. Uh, um, but yeah, it's really, I find it really rewarding. Possibly, as I alluded to before, like watching him grow and develop new skills. And I really loved watching him with his language, because he is hyperlexic. He's not been diagnosed as such, but when he turned 2, around his second birthday, he went through 2 weeks where he was absolutely obsessed with. There's a Dr. Seuss book, which is like an ABC's book. It's just a silly little rhyming thing.
okay,
But he just became absolutely obsessed with this book for like 2 weeks. And during that time, he learnt to identify all the letters, like written, not just because we mentioned it to them well, I don't know what the English equivalent actually is, but like you take your kid to the child development at various points for checkups and stuff like that. And we mentioned it, and she said, "Oh, you mean he can sing the ABC song?" And I'm like, "No, he can read the letters. He can identify the letters." And there was a big pause. I'm like, "You really can." um, so
Sorry, I think the like English equivalent would be like maybe like a health visitor or something like that.
yeah,
Maybe,
and they
yeah.
have them on regular basis up until the age of 4, and then it's like a different department. But it's good because it's like it identifies, I guess, the at-risk kids as well. But when I try and talk about this kind of stuff, it took me a long time to get them to believe me, and I was like, no, he just decided to learn the alphabet. But now he's 3 and 4 months, and he's pretty much reading. He's reading a lot independently. He'll like go up to the screen on a laptop, and like if I've got Twitter open or something, and he goes, "Does that say home?" And I'm like, "Yes, it does." Very good. And that says notifications. So yeah, his like that's been the most incredible thing, watching his language skills blossom and watching him learn to read. That's been like just and I don't know whether that's a parenting thing or just like because I'm kind of a nerdy language person. I like words and reading. I just think it's cool, and not in a kind of like I want to show off my kid, isn't he great? I just think it's just really cool.
To be fair, it sounds really cool. I have to be honest.
But I'm sure you get the same thing, like even if you don't have a hyperlexic kid, it's just like nice watching your kid develop skills and like learning new things and becoming a person,
Yeah, no, definitely, and yeah, definitely, absolutely. And I think for me, when we actually undergo that journey, I think that kind of mystery of what's going to happen, what will happen, but also how we end up influencing them. I think it's definitely going to be interesting, and it is something well, years ago I wouldn't be sitting here saying I like the idea of parenting because it just seemed
yeah,
like a monumental task. I didn't even know I said that right, but but
yeah.
but I can kind of see, I can definitely see, especially talking to you as well, like kind of like the kind of the benefits of it, really. I guess actually to kind of round this topic off, because I feel like we have talked quite a lot, and there's a lot of information there, for people to consume and ponder over, and all of that stuff. Have you got any other bits of advice for autistics, maybe who are like me, who are thinking about considering being parents, and just some things to think about?
Well, I think there's never going to be a good time. That's the thing. Like I was always waiting, what's a good time? And then you get to a point you're like, there's never going to be a point where, you're just like, yes, now would be a great time to turn my life upside down. It just doesn't happen like that. But there might be a more convenient time, certainly. But it's just about like if you're kind of putting it off because you're scared or you're a bit unsure, but not because there's any reason to be. Like if you want, if you want kids. If you don't really want kids, then I would advise like don't do it because you feel social pressure to, like, because that will make it so much harder. The fact that I wanted my child very much, makes it easier because it's not like I don't resent him in any way. And I think if I hadn't really wanted him, or if I was doing it because it was social pressure or something, I think I'd have a much worse time. So I think you got to be really honest with yourself, like if you really want kids. Having said that, you can really want kids and also really struggle, especially with the early years. And I think possibly the early years are harder for autistic parents because it's more of a sensory onslaught. Um, but like you asked for advice. I guess that's some advice. But also like you're probably more capable than you think, and like ignoring everybody else's advice is probably going to save your sanity because most of the time people don't know what they're talking about, and they'll just repeat advice that maybe their parents told them or they heard from somewhere, and it just doesn't make any sense. So you just have to like train yourself to listen to your own gut about what your child needs, because I think having a child is a very kind of like primal thing, like it's in our bodies. We know what to do with kids. That's how we survived as a species. So you just have to really like listen to that. And if that's not something that that sort of the conventional wisdom on child rearing agrees with, then maybe that doesn't matter. But you do you kind of thing. As long as your child's needs are being met.
I definitely agree with that, especially about the part when it comes to actually, I guess, understanding your own worth in a way. That's something I'm not the best at. I'll be honest. But no, that's actually great advice. So thank you for I don't know, giving your thoughts.
Well, yeah, I don't want to like paint myself as some kind of parenting guru or whatever, but I also just think that like, well, I can see you being like on the other side, being a bit unsure, not knowing if you'll be able to cope, and I can tell you now, you will cope because you have to. You'll just like the baby will be born, and you'll just be like, okay, right, now we just have to focus on this all the time. And you'll be tired and it'll be stressful and there'll be sensory overloads during this point. You just keep going. That's the thing. And you just keep dealing with the next thing that happens. Not like the next problem or whatever. But there's children have got very different needs throughout their life. And you have to get good at adapting. And that's probably something that some autistic people are not very good at. But that's my warning, is that like there's a lot of change and there's a lot of adapting that you need to do.
But I think that's obviously just comes with the territory, really. But I think kind of the reason why, I'm just enjoyed listening to you talk about your son and everything is just not because you're an expert. Like if someone was an expert on something, I don't know. It doesn't come across in the right way, but I think it's just more. I don't know. You just talk about it in such a like. I don't know, just a human way, I guess.
Oh, thank you. That's a very nice compliment, calling me human there.
Because we're all robots, guys. We're all...
Yeah, I know. It's been a while since someone called me a human.
Oh god. I think people just want to hear from real people, and
Yeah.
that's what the podcast is for, really.
Yeah. Well, that's why people watch YouTube as well, I think, a lot of the time.
That's very true. That's very true. But a question that I like to ask to end my podcasts: what advice would you give to someone to unmask? What would your advice be?
To unmask. Start out with people that you really trust. Start out in your inner circle and do it slowly. The thing is, I can't remember who I was talking to someone else earlier in the week, I think, about unmasking. And especially if you've built up a mask for over a period of decades or years, that's not coming off. It's kind of like knitted into who you are. And so you really have to say, okay, which bits are not working for me and which bits are okay, because I don't really think that you need to fully unmask. I don't think that it's safe for autistics to fully unmask, depending on which country they live in, their circumstances, their gender presentation, their race. It's not always safe for autistics to unmask. And so you just have to do it in a way that feels safe to you and feels comfortable and is a conscious decision, saying like, okay, when I'm with this person, I don't need to make really exaggerated facial expressions because they know that I'm listening to them. So I can just relax my face and untense my body, for example. That's just one example, but
Yeah.
For me, a lot of unmasking has been about realizing that when I'm talking to someone that is not like one of my close friends or family, the reason I know I'm masking is because my whole body is actually tense and I'm sitting very tensely. Whereas if I'm talking to someone that I'm comfortable with, I'll be sitting like cross-legged or I'll be sitting in a funny position and my body will be relaxed. And so learning figuring that out, and it's probably not the same for everyone, but that's figuring something out about the way that I mask and what my body does when I'm masking, to think, okay, well, if I want to unmask a little bit with someone, all I need to do is just notice that I'm tensing and then physically untense. And maybe I don't change anything in my behavior, but it's a decision to be like, I don't need to pretend with these people, and pretend is maybe the wrong word, but I don't need to mask with these people. And I might still mask, but then you say, well, I don't need to. And that's the important thing, because regardless of what you end up presenting on the outside, it is about kind of like being true to yourself and not doing things out of fear. That's all I've got.
To be honest, that was actually a really great answer. There's no, to be honest, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just what people think. It's an open-ended question, and
yeah,
I do love a good open-ended question, because it just, I don't know.
I can go on for hours. It's just as well that you're going to stop me soon, because when it comes to talking about this, we could probably just carry on talking for a while until one of us needs to pee.
Yeah. To be honest, that is very much true. But
if only we were robots, right? Then we really could carry on. We wouldn't need to do all this pesky biological human stuff.
Oh God, I know, right? Oh, but God, it's a shame that's a thing, because I have really enjoyed my time listening to you and conversing. It's just been great. I hope you've enjoyed I hope you have enjoyed your time, because I never know.
No, it's always fun to chat about this kind of stuff, and talking about YouTube especially. Oh, you could have kept me going for ages. But it's nice also to talk about parenting. Actually, sometimes talking about things like this helps me. Sometimes I haven't necessarily thought of all the things until you ask me the question, and so I'm probably going to go away and think, I came out with that. Is that really what I think? Well, I hope it is. But do you know what I mean? It's like sometimes it brings out things and you say it and you're like, oh, yeah, I guess so. So it's nice. It's nice, actually. I like talking about stuff like this. So thank you very much for having me on. It's always a pleasure to be invited on an IndieAndy podcast or YouTube collab or something like that.
Well, we'll definitely have to work on this something soon, for sure. But I think we'll leave it a little while.
Yeah, we don't want to wear people out with our awesomeness.
No, absolutely not. No. No, but no, guys, if for whatever reason you haven't checked Sam out, firstly, why haven't you? Have a look down below in the description. You'll find Sam's.
Actually mention the name of my YouTube channel, because I feel like I just said I was Sam, and I don't even think it's. Did you mention my YouTube channel though?
I said Yo Samdy Sam,
okay, right.
And it'll be promoted that way, so people know who you are. So don't worry.
Because I'm like, when you said to introduce yourself, I was like, I'm Sam, and I just it just occurred to me, did I actually say things properly? I don't
know. No, I'm pretty sure. Yes, no, I definitely did, because I've got it on my notes.
Okay, good.
I've got it on my notes. But yes, if you want to check out Sam from Yo Samdy Sam, links are in the description. Is there anything else you want to plug or promote, Sam?
Check out my Instagram as well. Yo Samdy Sam on Instagram as well.
There we go. I'll definitely include that. Well, thank you very much, Sam, for coming on the podcast, and thank you to everyone who has been listening to the podcast. If you could give this a review on Apple Podcast, that'd be really, really great. I only just started posting my content onto Apple Podcast, because I only just recently figured it out. So if you could do that, that'd be great.
Where else are your podcasts available, Andy?
Oh, that's a good question. No one's asked me that. It's on Spotify. It's available on Anchor, and just anywhere else where you can get your podcast. You could also find this on YouTube as well. Other videos that I do on a weekly basis on my IndieAndy channel, which is also linked below. Because I don't just do a podcast. I do videos like Sam does. So, yeah, if you want to check anything out, it's all in the description. You can have a look yourself. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode of the Unmasked Podcast, and until next time I someone will see you in the future sometime. So until then, take care and bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.